The silence was deafening in the bridal suite. Lena stood frozen, staring at the empty wedding gown laid delicately on the bed like a ghost. Her heart pounded as her fingers trembled over the lace sleeve. She'd knocked on the bathroom door 5 minutes ago. No answer. Then 10. Still nothing. When she finally opened it, her worst fear came true. Her twin sister, Lena, was gone. All that remained was a single note scrawled on hotel stationery. "I can't do this. I'm sorry. Please don't hate me." The air left Lena's lungs. She looked around in disbelief, half expecting Lena to jump out laughing, saying this was some pre-wedding prank. But the truth settled like cement in her gut. Her sister had run away on her wedding day, with less than an hour to go before the ceremony. And Lena had no idea what to do. She sank onto the edge of the bed, the corset of her maid of honor dress cutting into her ribs, her breathing shallow. Thoughts scrambled in her head. What about their parents? Hundreds of guests were already arriving. A cathedral packed with flowers, musicians tuning violins, a reception hall waiting to burst into celebration. And then there was him, Julian, the groom, the man Lena had been set to marry, the man who didn't know his bride had just vanished. The knock came too fast. "Lena, we're due to leave for the church in 10. Is Lena ready?" Their mother called through the door. Lena's mouth opened, but no words came. She felt the scream crawl up her throat and get stuck. Her mind darted. She couldn't say it, not yet. Not when everything was hanging by a thread. What would happen if she told the truth now? That Lena had run away? A flash of a memory, when she and Lena were 9 years old and Lena froze on stage at the school recital. Lena stepped forward, took her place, and lip-synced both their lines until the curtain fell. It had always been that way. Lena covered for her, protected her. Her eyes fell on the wedding gown again. Insane, impossible. And yet, no one else knew Lena better than she did. They were identical in looks. Only family and close friends could tell them apart, and even then, not always. Lena had confided everything in her for months, right down to the makeup brand she'd chosen for the big day. Maybe it could work, just long enough to figure things out. To give Lena time to come back, to avoid a scene. Before she could stop herself, Lena was unzipping the garment bag. 10 minutes later, the limo ride was a blur. Her mother beamed, her father fiddled with his cufflinks, the bridesmaids chatted nervously around her. Everyone thought she was Lena. No one noticed her stiff posture, the way she kept wiping her sweaty palms on the silk skirt. As the car pulled up to the church, the sheer gravity of what she was doing hit her. This wasn't some harmless cover-up. She was about to walk down the aisle as her sister. Fake a wedding. Stand in front of a man about to vow to love her forever. Her stomach churned. The music started, and before she could say a word to stop it, Lena was walking down the aisle on her father's arm, smiling through the veil like she'd always imagined herself doing. Just never like this. Then she saw him. Julian, tall, handsome, and composed, standing at the altar in a navy suit that fit like it had been made for him alone. His eyes locked onto hers with such warmth, such peace, that something in Lena cracked. He thought she was Lena. But in that moment, Lena's heart beat faster for an entirely different reason. Because she wasn't just nervous, she was falling for him. The ceremony passed in a blur of borrowed vows and trembling hands. She didn't dare speak more than necessary. She let the officiant do most of the talking. When Julian slipped the ring on her finger, her vision blurred. And then they kissed. It wasn't meant to mean anything, but when his lips touched hers, gentle, reverent, something sparked inside her. Something dangerous. Lena barely remembered walking out into the courtyard with him as the guests threw flower petals. She barely recalled the 100 hands that shook hers or the champagne flutes pressed into her palm. Every move was a performance, but her heart was slipping out of character. Then came the limo again, this time alone with him. As the door shut behind them, Lena's throat tightened. He looked at her, his expression tender, content. "You did it," he whispered, brushing a stray strand from her face. "We made it." She flinched slightly at his touch, then hated herself for it. Julian smiled, misreading her nerves. "Hey, it's okay. I know today was overwhelming. You've been on edge for weeks." She managed a small nod. The worst part? He wasn't wrong. Lena had been distant and snappy throughout their engagement. Cold. Julian had stuck by her, loyal to the core. Now he was married, to the wrong sister. Lena stared out the window, struggling to breathe. She had to tell him. Tonight. As soon as they got through the reception, she'd explain everything. But then he reached for her hand. And the way his fingers wrapped around hers, it was the first time in years she didn't feel like she was in the background of someone else's story. And that terrified her. The reception hall glittered with chandeliers and fairy lights. Hundreds of guests packed the ballroom. Laughter echoed. Music floated above, clinking glasses and spinning dancers. Lena smiled, danced, and toasted as if everything were real. Julian never left her side, and every time he looked at her, her chest tightened. He whispered things meant for Liana, jokes about their first date, references to memories Lena didn't share. She nodded, played along, feeling guilt slice deeper each time. And yet, something was strange. Julian seemed happier than usual, relaxed in a way Liana had always said he never was. At one point, during a quiet, slow dance under the fairy lights, he leaned in close and whispered, "You feel different today." She froze. He pulled back slightly, studying her. "I mean that in a good way. Lighter, like the girl I first fell for." Lena's mouth went dry. She looked up at him, heart hammering. "Julian?" He tilted his head. "Yeah?" She opened her mouth. This was it. She had to say something, anything. But her lips moved without sound. How could she tell him here, on their wedding night, that he'd married the wrong woman? That the real bride had vanished without a word and the woman in his arms was her sister? Her legs weakened. He caught her. "You okay?" She nodded, barely. "I'm just tired," she whispered. Later that night, when they arrived at the honeymoon suite, Lena stood frozen at the door. Julian slipped off his jacket, loosening his tie, unaware of the war raging inside her. He sat down on the edge of the bed and looked up at her with that same softness that made her knees want to give out. "You want to talk?" he asked, his voice low. Lena's heart twisted. "Yes," she said, "but not tonight, please." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. She crossed the room slowly, stepping into the bathroom, locking the door behind her. And for the first time since morning, she let the tears fall, because she wasn't sure who she was crying for. Her sister, who had disappeared, or herself, who might be falling in love with the man she could never have. Morning light crept across the hotel room floor like a slow confession. Lena hadn't slept. She sat in a white robe on the armchair by the window, staring at the sunrise with red-rimmed eyes and a dry mouth. Her phone sat on the dresser beside her, cold and untouched. No messages from Liana, no calls, no apology. Julian stirred in bed behind her. She didn't dare turn around. She wasn't ready for more lies. Not when the guilt felt like a scream trapped under her ribs, a soft rustle of sheets, his footsteps padded across the carpet. "Did you sleep at all?" he asked, his voice still husky with sleep. Lena forced herself to nod. "Not much," she said, not lying for once. He walked to the window, shirtless, brushing his hand across her shoulder. The touch was warm and familiar, dangerously so. "I was thinking," he said, "we could skip the resort today. Just take a drive, clear our heads." "You used to love those spontaneous drives, remember?" She didn't. Lena turned her face away and bit her lip. Julian didn't notice. "I just want you to be happy," he continued, kneeling beside her. "That's all I've ever wanted, Liana." There it was again, that name, that lie. She couldn't take it anymore. "Julian," she said, her voice cracking, "I need to tell you something important." He looked up at her, blinking, but the knock on the door shattered the moment. "Room service!" A cheerful voice called. Lena nearly screamed. Julian sighed, rising. "Perfect timing," he muttered, heading toward the door. Lena buried her face in her hands. She had missed her chance. Again. They took a rental car and drove toward the coast, winding along cliffside roads that sliced through pine forests and led to distant, glittering oceans. Julian drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting on her knee. Lena tried not to flinch. Every gesture was tender, familiar, and none of it was meant for her. "You remember this road?" he asked. "You got carsick here once. I had to pull over so you could throw up behind a tree." She forced a laugh. It felt like stealing someone else's life. They stopped at a quiet overlook and got out. Below, waves crashed against jagged cliffs. Wind tugged at her hair. Julian took her hand and they stood side by side, the breeze pulling at their clothes. She finally spoke. "Julian, have you ever wondered if people can change overnight?" He turned to her, confused. "In what way? Like, one day you wake up and realize you've been pretending, and you're tired of it, and maybe you want something else, someone else, but you're afraid it's too late. Julian's brows furrowed. I don't know, he said. I think if it's real, it's never too late. Lena looked at him, searching his face. He wasn't the cold fiancé Liana had described. He was thoughtful, present, kind. Did Liana ever really know him? Did she ever love him? Or was she just afraid of losing control? Lena's thoughts tangled, her emotions a storm, and still no word from her sister. That evening, back at the hotel, Julian suggested room service and a movie. Lena stayed curled on the bed, tucked beneath a blanket, clutching a pillow like it might keep her grounded in reality. He sat beside her, flipping channels. At one point, he glanced at her and smiled. You're different, he said softly. Her stomach dropped. You've said that before, she whispered. He nodded. I know, but I mean it. You're warmer now, open. She met his gaze. What if I've always been like this, she said. Just hidden? His eyes lingered on hers. Then I wish I'd seen it sooner. She almost told him everything right then. The words sat heavy on her tongue, but he reached for her hand again, and it silenced her. Because deep down, a selfish part of her didn't want it to end. 3 days passed. No sign of Liana. No calls, no texts. Her phone remained off, her apartment unanswered. Lena began to wonder if she'd ever come back, and the longer she was gone, the more impossible it felt to untangle what Lena had done. Julian grew more relaxed around her. He kissed her often now, gentle, reverent kisses that made her heart ache with guilt and longing. And Lena began to fall harder, not because of the act or the pressure or the lie, but because with every quiet conversation, every shared laugh, every small moment of kindness, she saw the truth. Julian was the kind of man she'd always dreamed of, and Liana never deserved him. The guilt gnawed at her. But something else was growing too. Hope. A terrible, dangerous hope. What if, when she told him, he didn't leave? What if he saw her, Lena, and still chose her? What if the love that had blossomed wasn't fake? On the 5th morning, everything changed. They were back from a sunrise walk along the beach. Julian made coffee. Lena opened her phone out of habit, and there it was, a voicemail from Liana. Her fingers shook as she pressed play. Lena, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have left like that. I know I ruined everything. I just couldn't do it. I never loved him. Not really. You knew that, didn't you? I think maybe you loved him more than I ever could. And maybe that's okay. I won't come back. Not yet. Not until I figure out who I am without everyone expecting me to be perfect. Just, please don't hate me. And don't tell him. Let him be happy, even if it's not with me. The phone slipped from her hand. Julian turned. You okay? Lena nodded too quickly. Just my sister, she whispered. She's safe. He smiled, relieved. Thank God. She stared at the coffee mug in her hands. She had her sister's permission now. But that didn't make it right. Not yet. That night, as the sky turned purple outside their hotel window, Julian held her close in bed. Thank you, he whispered. For what? She asked, afraid of the answer. For being here, for staying, even when things got hard. She turned to him, trembling. Julian, he kissed her forehead. You're everything I hoped for. I didn't realize how far apart we'd gotten before the wedding, but now, I feel like we're us again. Tears burned her eyes. She sat up in the dark. I have to tell you something. He blinked, rising onto one elbow. It's important, she said, and once I say it, you might hate me. You might walk away. His brows furrowed. Liana? I'm not Liana, she blurted. The words hung like lightning in the room. Silence. Utter, soul-crushing silence. Julian sat frozen. What did you say? Lena's hands shook in her lap, her voice cracked. I'm not Liana. I'm Lena, her twin. He stared at her, the color draining from his face. No, you're lying. I wish I were, she said, choking back tears. She ran away the morning of the wedding, left a note. I didn't know what to do. Everything was already set. I thought she'd come back. I didn't mean for it to go this far. He got out of bed, backing away like she'd slapped him. You're telling me we're married, and I've been living with the wrong sister? Lena nodded, tears streaming down her face. He paced in a circle, hands in his hair. This is insane. This is a joke. I didn't plan this, she cried. I just wanted to protect her, protect you, and then I started to fall for you, and I didn't know how to stop. He turned on her, eyes blazing. Do you have any idea what you've done? This wasn't just a mistake, Lena. This was my wedding, my life. I know, she whispered. Do you? His voice cracked. Because I don't even know who I married. I don't even know who you are. She looked up at him, shaking. "I'm the one who's been here, the one who stayed, the one who laughed with you, cried with you, the one who loves you." He stared at her, shattered, and then, without a word, he walked out the door. The hotel room door slammed like the final note in a symphony of disaster. Lena sat in the silence that followed, numb. Her wedding ring felt like a stone on her finger, no longer a symbol of promise, but of betrayal, of confusion, of a love built on everything but truth. She had told him. She had done the right thing, but the right thing didn't feel like a clean breath. It felt like a wound that wouldn't clot. An hour passed, then another. No messages. No knock. No Julian. Lena stood slowly, her legs unsteady. Her reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger. Red eyes, tear-streaked cheeks, a woman who had stolen her sister's wedding day and then stolen the groom's heart. Only now she wasn't sure if she even had it anymore. She packed quietly. There wasn't much to take. A few dresses, a journal, the hairpin her mother had given them both. The room, once filled with laughter and light, now echoed with ghosts. By evening, she was in a cab to the airport, having left a simple note for Julian at the front desk. "I'm sorry. You deserve honesty. You deserve peace. I'll disappear if that's what you need, Lena." As the city blurred past the window, she thought of her sister, of the girl who always ran from things, and of herself, who had always been the one left behind cleaning up the wreckage. But this time, she had been the wreckage too. A week passed, then two. Lena returned to their hometown and moved into a tiny sublet above a bakery. The scent of bread and cinnamon distracted her during the mornings, but the nights were unbearable. She avoided calls from family, knowing that word of the wedding had spread. Her parents didn't know the truth yet, but they sensed something had gone wrong, something deep. And Julian? Nothing. Not a text, not a missed call, not even a social media update. It was like he'd erased her, like she had never existed. She couldn't blame him. She didn't know what she expected. One morning, she found herself walking along the old lake trail near their childhood home. It was the place they used to bike to as kids, where she and Lena would skip stones and dream about their futures. Back then, everything seemed so simple. She sat on a weathered bench and pulled out her journal. Writing had always been her therapy, but now, every word felt like bleeding. "I didn't mean to steal his heart. I just wanted to protect hers." And somewhere in the silence, he became mine. She stopped, blinking at the page. Because for all her guilt, one truth rang out stronger than the rest. She hadn't pretended to love Julian. She simply had. And maybe in some small corner of him, he had loved her too, if only he could separate the face he knew from the soul underneath. It was Lena who found her first. 3 weeks after the wedding, she showed up unannounced, sunglasses on, hair tied up in a scarf, looking thinner and wearier than Lena had ever seen her. They sat in the tiny kitchen. Neither spoke for a long time. Lena finally broke the silence. "I saw the pictures," Lena flinched. "Of the wedding?" Lena nodded. "You looked happy." "I wasn't," Lena said. "Not really. I was terrified. Of getting caught? Of feeling something I wasn't allowed to feel." Lena didn't look at her. She fidgeted with a spoon, her fingers shaking. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Lena swallowed the lump in her throat. "You should have told him," she said. "Months ago, before all of this." "I couldn't," Lena said. "I didn't know how. He was so good and I didn't feel like I deserved him." Lena said nothing. "He loved me," Lena continued, "but he never saw me. Not really. I think he saw you, or who I tried to be when you were around." Lena's eyes widened. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe this wasn't your mistake alone. I handed you the mask. You just wore it." Silence stretched between them like glass, fragile and sharp. Finally, Lena said, "I haven't reached out to him. I won't. I think he needs time, but if he ever asks for the truth, I'll give it." Lena blinked back tears. "Why did you come?" "To see if you were okay," Lena whispered. "To see if the one person I trust most is still alive in there." She reached across the table and took Lena's hand. "I love you. I always will, even if I'm the coward and you're the one who stayed." And for the first time in weeks, Lena let herself cry. Another week passed. The mornings came easier now. She started working part-time at the bakery below, her fingers learning the rhythm of kneading dough and shaping pastries. Life began to take shape again. But Julian haunted every quiet moment. Then, one Wednesday afternoon, she looked up from the register and froze. He was standing at the door, his silhouette framed by soft light, hair tousled from the wind, his expression unreadable. Lena's heart stopped. She wiped her hands on her apron and stepped forward, unsure if she was awake. He walked toward her slowly. No words, no smile, just raw, searching eyes. She met them, bracing herself. "I didn't expect to see you again," she whispered. Julian nodded once. "I didn't expect to come." Silence pressed between them. "I got your note," he said. "I didn't know what else to say." He hesitated. "I spent 3 weeks trying to hate you." Lena's breath caught. "But I couldn't," he said, "because I kept replaying every moment, every laugh, every conversation, every time you looked at me like I mattered." He stepped closer. "I should have known," he said. "You weren't cold, you weren't distant. You saw me in a way she never did, but I thought I was just imagining it." Tears welled in Lena's eyes. "You have every right to walk away." He shook his head. "I didn't come here to walk away. I came to ask you one thing." She held her breath. "Did you love me when you stood at that altar?" She nodded, every second of it. He reached out, slowly, gently, and touched her hand. "I fell in love with you, Lena. Not the name, not the dress. You." A sob broke from her chest. "You still mean that?" "I've never meant anything more." And in the quiet space between broken truths and second chances, he kissed her. Not out of confusion, not out of obligation, but out of certainty. The weeks that followed weren't simple. They didn't pretend everything was perfect. Julian didn't just slip back into her life as if nothing had happened. But what they built was real. This time it was grounded in honesty, raw, flawed, and scarred, but no longer a lie. Lena told him everything. Every thought the morning she put on the dress, every heartbeat during the ceremony, every silent battle she fought afterward, torn between guilt and growing love. Julian listened, asked questions, then listened more. There were moments when he needed space, days when he walked away mid-conversation just to breathe. Lena gave it to him. She didn't cling, didn't plead. She let the truth speak louder than her desperation. And in time it did. They started again, not as husband and wife, but as something better. Two people discovering what it meant to truly choose each other. 3 months later, they met Lena for dinner. It was awkward at first. Lena had cut her hair short and dyed it chestnut brown, a soft rebellion, maybe, or a way to shed the skin of the woman everyone had expected her to be. She wore no makeup, no pretense, just honesty. "Julian," she said after the waitress left them alone, "I owe you more than an apology. I know what I did was selfish." He nodded. "It hurt," he said plainly, "but I think now it had to happen, for all of us." Lena gave a sad smile. "I used to think I needed someone like you to feel whole, but the truth is I didn't even know myself back then. I was marrying a version of you I built in my head, because that's what I thought love was." Julian looked at Lena, who had stayed quiet, then back at Lena. "I loved you," he said gently, "but I never felt seen by you." Lena, she saw me, every part of me. Lena blinked fast, nodding. "I know," she whispered, "and I'm glad. You both deserve it." They ate quietly after that, not out of discomfort, but peace, like a wound finally stitched closed. By spring, Lena had moved into Julian's apartment. Not as his wife, not yet. Just Lena, just herself. They grocery shopped, cooked dinners together, danced in the kitchen barefoot with flour on their noses. They watched bad reality shows and debated movie endings. He read her writing. She watched him sketch house plans for his clients and lose track of time. It was the kind of love that didn't scream. It whispered, "I'm here." They didn't rush. They let time make the choice this time, and when the choice came, it came in the most unexpected way. They were at the lake again, the one from their childhood, the same trail, the same bench. Julian held her hand, a quiet smile on his face as the breeze rippled the water. "You know what's funny?" he said. "What?" "I never liked that wedding, the first one." She looked at him in surprise. "I thought I was nervous because I loved Lena, but it wasn't that. Something felt wrong, off, like I was playing a role. And now I'm just me." He stood, reached into his jacket pocket, and pulled out a small velvet box. Lena froze. "No crowds, no cathedral, no strings," Julian said. "Just you and me." He knelt on the grass, ring in hand. "This time I know who I'm choosing. Not the version of you I imagined. Not the name, not the dress. You, Lena." Her heart stopped, then galloped. Tears welled in her eyes. She knelt too, right in front of him. "Yes," she whispered. "1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring on her finger, and for the first time, it felt right. They didn't plan a lavish wedding, just family and a few friends on a quiet cliffside overlooking the ocean. Lena stood beside her, beaming. Their parents cried during the vows, the kind of tears that tasted of healing. Julian wore navy again. But Lena didn't wear her sister's gown. She wore a simple dress of soft ivory, flowing like poetry around her legs. No veil, no secrets, just truth. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife for real, Julian lifted her into his arms, spinning her once as the waves roared behind them. This time, the kiss didn't carry weight or guilt, only promise. At the reception, Lena gave a short speech. She hadn't planned to, but the words rose naturally, carried by the wind of everything they'd lived through. "I never thought I'd fall in love the way I did," she said, standing barefoot on the grass with a glass of champagne in her hand. "I never thought I'd be the bride. Not like this. But love doesn't follow the rules we write. It doesn't care for scripts or ceremonies. Sometimes it sneaks in quietly. Sometimes it knocks everything down to build something new." She looked at Julian. "I didn't take someone else's place. I found my own, and I'll never forget how it felt to finally be seen for who I really am." Applause, tears, laughter. Lena sat down, breathless. Julian leaned in, brushing a kiss against her ear. "You've always had a place," he whispered. "It was just waiting for you to claim it." That night, in their little coastal cottage, Lena curled beside him on the porch swing. The stars blinked above them, the sea sang in the dark, and the warmth of his arm wrapped around her like the future itself. She thought of the girl she used to be, the one who lived in the background, who cleaned up after storms, and she smiled, because now she was the one dancing in the center of her own story. No more masks, no more pretending, just love. True, terrifying, breathtaking love. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't running from it. She was running to it.